Austin, who's calling in from North Carolina. Austin, we'll get to you first. You are live on Truth Wanted. What's up?
Hey, so I think a truth that shouldn't be exposed is that free will, there's not really good evidence for free will. I think I said earlier that it's really just depressed people, but I think a lot of normal people also can't handle that truth of the universe.
Why do you think?
Like it causes bad outcomes.
What do you think would that the possible outcomes would be?
Yeah. Well, definitely if it's a depressed person we're talking about, and you tell them, you know, free will is probably not real. They're just going to stay in that cycle. But then I thought, even if you're like a really successful person, you might start, or a really happy person might start like resting on your laurels more. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I can see that.
Do you think there's an equal likelihood that the recognition for the majority of people that there isn't free will? Do you think it's possible that actually the majority of people, when they agree to that, start working harder and start caring more and start participating more in the world around them?
No, I don't think that's likely.
Okay, so why do you think what do you think it is about those two categories that is different about, like, currently what's leading you to accept that more people would probably turn to this, you know, not productive member of society, not really care about their own life or other people and stuff? And like, why do you think that would be the cause, the outcome for most people?
Well, let's just talk about depressed people first. So they'd be like, oh, so I'm in this bad state and there's nothing I can do to change it. And science proved that was the case. So then, like, they're less likely to try. I'm not
there
sure
is
about
something they can do to change it, right?
People, though.
I think that might, in my understanding of free will, right, that might be a misapplication of the term, because free will doesn't mean you can't change things, or lack of free will doesn't mean you can't change things. It just means we're a physical system in a physical universe. So just like how a lake can be polluted because you put stuff into that lake, I can be polluted because if I don't know, drink alcohol all the time excessively, or you know, do unhealthy things because I'm a physical system and that's going into me. So like I can see how you can construe that in such a way to be like, oh, well, I can't change the outcomes of things, but it actually can mean that, like, oh, you may be destined for good things too. You know, like, it doesn't, just because we don't have free will doesn't mean that we have full knowledge of the future either, right? So, and
I can easily think of a way that this recognition could lead somebody to actively do more good things. So for instance, like, somebody goes out, right, and they're late for work, and they see somebody on the side of the road is pouring down rain, and they got a flat tire. And this person now, because they have fully accepted that they don't have free will, they're just flat out an automaton, a domino in the chain falling over. And as they see that person on the side of the road, they get a feeling in their head that says, gosh, SR, you should stop for them. And where in the past they would have said, well, I don't know, I have that free will thing and I can make choices. Now, because they recognize they don't have free will, they go, oh my gosh, this feeling that arose from inside of me is a natural feeling that I can't do anything about. I better freaking do it. I better go full in, man. I can absolutely see it both ways, Austin.
You're saying that people will act with more agency if they believe they don't have free will.
I do.
Doesn't make sense to
when
me.
I stepped away from the belief that I had free will, I started engaging more actively in the world around me. And sure, some of it was at the beginning. Some of it was just real basic, minor shit, right? Like, I'd be driving home from work and I'd think to myself, man, I kind of want tacos, you know? But that was like at the first part of my journey home. And then, like, as I was driving for 20 minutes and I was stuck in fucking traffic and I like had to switch lanes 3 times because this one was closed for road work and that one had an accident, blah, blah, blah. I don't end up going to get tacos tacos. Now I kind of feel bad about that. And I go, God, why didn't I really wanted tacos? Why didn't I? But once I started, accepting, hey man, you don't actually have as much control as you think you do. I don't feel bad about those situations anymore because for whatever reason, the confluence of events led me to a place where I didn't get tacos this time. And now I don't like beat myself up about it or even like dwell on it. I just go, cool, I'll get tacos next time I'm feeling it,
Is this like usually the response you get when you tell someone this and you successfully convince them that free will is not? Because in my experience, it usually they either like want to deny it or they try to like blot it out of their mind.
Sure. I think there's a difference between the initial.
I try to explain this to people.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to explain to them in a very clinical, neuroscience way.
Yeah.
And it's never good. Is it really not your experience? I thought this was like kind of the norm.
So I think we're talking about two different experiences. You're talking about the initial presentation of this idea to an individual that does not accept it and has never heard it versus an individual who has fully accepted this idea after spending a lot of time thinking about it.
No.
I often have a very similar situation that you do at the beginning, Austin. Oftentimes that is the situation that I experience, but definitely not 100%. But then when it comes to the experience I was talking about of being somebody who has looked into this for a while and finally accepted it, those people tend to act more in the way that I was talking.
Yeah.
That is my experience.
There's a lot of people too, Austin, that feel like, oh, if you say there's no God, people are going to go out and murder and kill people. And it's like, that isn't, well, I don't think that's necessarily true. I think
that definitely does not happen. But I definitely have seen at least two of my friends kind of give up when I explain this to them. They use it I guess, I don't know.
When you say give up, you mean they internalize what you're saying and say, oh, I'm depressed about my life now because I have no free will. Is that what you're saying?
No, they stop trying to get out of a slump, basically. And
yeah.
I've read about other people have the same experience online. I don't know how common it is.
I'm going to tell you this, Austin. That's because they're depressed. That is, I don't think you can say that they have free will or don't have free will, and that's not going to necessarily.
That free will is not real. So specifically, don't tell depressed people that free will is not real.
I
agree with that.
I don't know because
to tell depressed people.
Well, again, I don't know if I've been depressed before, and I also don't think free will is real. And again, that's anecdote, but I just don't think that's how most people internalize that. I don't think if you're depressed and you realize that free will is not a thing, that suddenly that means you can't make changes in your life. Because again, that's just not what that means. It just means, again, that we're a physical system and we have physical things interact with us, and we can't escape that sort of physicality. That's how I interpret free will. If you're interpreting free will as the universe has destined you to do certain things and you can't get out of it, then yeah, I can see where that could be the case, but that's not my understanding of what a lack of free will is.
Yeah. And I think your caution is good, right, Austin? I'm not telling you just run, pell-mell through the streets convincing everybody that free will doesn't exist, no holds barred or anything, right?
Okay.
So I am glad that you say to yourself, gosh, before I start engaging deeply in these conversations with people, I want to make sure that they're, in an okay mindset. I can honestly tell you, one of the first times I really started looking into free will, there was 30 minutes maybe into this 3-hour podcast, right? With 5 different, cognitive scientists and psychologists and all this crap, right? And 30 minutes into the podcast, one of the people on the panel was just hey guys, I think we should pause for a moment and tell all of our listeners, if you've listened up to this point and you're starting to feel an overwhelming anxiety creep over you, or maybe just a deep sadness coming on, go ahead and pause this podcast right here and just do fucking anything else for a week or so, bro. Just let that shit marinate for some time. Absolutely. And I will promise you right here, right now, I frickin' paused that podcast for about a week and a half, man. Did not pick it back up. Came back to it later, felt a little better. Absolutely. But I don't think that, again, I praise the caution. I'm very appreciative of it. But I'm always worried that caution may sometimes prevent us from being honest, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we're big about truth here, right? It's very important. We want that truth. And I think truly most people do, and I understand we want to, hey, do I look fat in this dress? No, you look great, whatever, right? But in reality, we should always be honest with people,
as much as we typically can. Yeah,
absolutely.
There are exceptions to that rule, I do think.
Sure. It's not a hard and fast 100%.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Austin. Sorry.
Okay. So are there any true things, any true memes that you think are dangerous at all?
Yeah, it's a really interesting question. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I mean,
is the thing. I'm not positive.
There are definitely, like, okay, this just goes back to like censorship.
What if the race IQ thing? What if that was real?
Yeah, if that was found. So race is kind of a social construct, first of all. So we'd have to figure out what we even mean when we say, right. Oh, black people have a certain IQ versus like white people or whatever, right? So like that in itself is kind of
what if like someone just found a statistical correlation between skin color and IQ or something? Just hypothetically.
I feel like with that knowledge, we could do like better things to fix that disparity.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Now, granted, some people are going to be assholes with that data.
Yeah.
Absolutely, man.
Yeah.
But I feel like, you can't solve a problem until you know one exists. Now, I'm not lending any credence to any of this stuff. We're just using this as a hypothetical here.
Right.
But I'm saying, like, if we did definitively find that out, like there was something about people who grew up in Texas, versus people that grew up in Tennessee. And like we here in Tennessee are just, more 10% more dipshittery than you guys in Texas. If that were the case, then it would be like, oh man, what's going on? Like, what's happening? Now, I could probably argue that there's been a lack of public funding for education and healthcare for decades. Right. That's a different story. You see what I'm saying, Austin? Like, I don't know if there's some truth.
One more example, and then I'll hang up. Okay, what about like an entrepreneur? If they know the odds of failure, they're not going to start that business.
No. Like, first of all, denial is a hell of a drug. Second of all, most people are bad at statistics anyway, and they think that they're the super special one and will try stuff. Right. Listen. If that were true, Austin, people would not go and buy lottery tickets, and yet millions of people do it every day. Right? Now, granted, the investment on a lottery ticket is different from starting your own business, but people are still starting businesses every day, despite the monumentous evidence that shows most startup businesses do end up failing, right? But hey, that's what being human's all about, baby. We try anyway.
It's more about the passion of like the industry rather than like they look at the statistics. They care about, they really care about making cakes or like, building bikes or something. They don't really care about the odds. It's always been their dream to be a bike shop owner. They don't care about how many bike shops fail, really. That's not really what they're focused on.
Yeah.
And like if you go to your friend, you're trying to start a bike shop, and you're like, hey, these bike shops, it's like a 1 in 10 chance of being around in 5 years. Like, that's not a useful thing.
So it's one thing to open up, like, okay, if you're starting a VHS rental store, right? And in the year of our Lord 2024, yeah, that's probably a bad idea. Like, but that's different, right? That's a difference in market. That like, if Elliot told me, hey, I'm starting up a business and I'm doing XYZ, yeah, I might ask him how he's going to do certain things. But why would I not support my friend in doing what he wants, what he loves, right?
And how many stories do we have of insanely successful people right now, right? That are the top of their game, who, when they do the interviews, they go, oh my gosh, what did your parents say? What did your friends say? And they go, oh, every single fucking person told me I was crazy. Every single person told me I would never make it. Lady Gaga was told for a decade she wasn't talented enough. She wasn't pretty enough. She couldn't do it. She's one of the biggest stars in the world.
Yeah. Now, granted, there's a bias there, right? Because
of course
we only see who succeeds. I mean, look at American Idol.
Go
ahead, Austin. Sorry.
like statistically, those people talking about Lady Gaga, they probably knew what they were talking about. It's just she was an anomaly, right?
Yes.
Sure.
So like,
But how do we know these other
the long run,
people
it
aren't
wasn't useful to
anomalies?
say that.
Look, look, there's pessimism, and then there's, doing something with life. I mean, if we never took any risks ever because the odds are against us, then there's just no point in doing anything. But we do it anyway. Look at this YouTube channel. Look at us doing stuff here, right? I mean, have you seen YouTube lately? It's only gotten worse for us as time has gotten on. But hey, we still continue to make content out there because I don't know. We doing what we love to do. I don't know what to tell you, Austin. That's just what being human's all about, is just going against the odds. I'm not saying that's a healthy thing all the time. It's definitely not. There are definitely people that do stupid stuff, even though it's their passion to do it, right? And it's not a good idea. Well, we can talk about how good of an idea it is all day, but I mean, if someone has it thought out, and even though there's risk to it, who am I to say they can't do something, right? Yeah. Anyway, Austin, that's all the time that we got, because we got some other folks that want to talk to us.